Shelby Starnes in class today. She just admitted something that she was over at the Lewandowski's house and they had some kind of bug, no not bug, dog repellent stuff. And I don't even know it's something in it. And somebody said, well, Shelby, why don't you taste it? And she put some on her hand and she tasted it. And lo and behold, it tasted nasty. And I guess she spit all over Lou, and I don't know. But immediately comes to mind is the expression, where is your head? You know, we know this expression, don't we? Where is your head? When we do something afterwards, when we say, why did I do that? We said, where was my head? You know, have you ever done anything like that? No confessions right now, but you know what I'm talking about. In the 90s, how many of you remember this? Nobody in my class remembered this, but there was this ridiculous practice where teenagers would go on a remote highway and they would lay down in the middle of the night, in the middle of the road, and cars would go back and forth. And lo and behold, some kids actually got run over. And there was a name they used for that. Does anybody remember? Yeah, we have some expressions for it, but they had some like name for doing this activity. Yeah, we would call. But I'm thinking, you know, where is your head? And when we say that, it's like, you know, what process did you use to come to the decision in the middle of the night I'm going to lay down in the middle of the road and let cars go back and forth and hopefully not run me over? And so here we are. We're going to the story. Jesus has got this commission. It's called a limited commission, where he sends out his disciples to tell the story, the good news, the gospel, the message of salvation. Okay, you with me? And they're out telling this, they're on this mission. And lo and behold, in between that mission, we have Mark giving us a story about John the Baptist and his situation with Herod and Herod's illegal wife, Herodias. And we know the end of the story is that John the Baptist gets his head cut off and put on a silver platter. And so I came up with this title for this sermon called, Where's Your Head? It kind of sounds a little macabre, but if you'll stay with me throughout this whole thing, I'm not into unholy humor. That's not what's going on. There really is something here that's going to tie all together. All right? It's going to all tie together. And I want to look at these three people with the common question, where's your head, Herod? Where's your head, Herodias? And where's your head, John? And please try not to laugh when we talk about John. Where's your head? But anyhow, I want to look at that. So if you will, get out your scriptures. And Jim, thank you. You said something that tied in perfectly with the message that Matt had, as Matt emphasized the love of God. And you brought in the necessary other half of that, and that's the truth of God. You know, and the truth and the love of God cannot be separated. And I have really learned something, especially over this last year, that the truth of God is what holds the love of God together. It's the truth of God that is the canvas in which God paints his beautiful portrait of love. Because there's a lot of false peddlers of love out there that is not love. What is true love? And we were guided to the cross today to see what true love is all about. Not this love that others are trying to sell us, but I mean the true love of God. Don't ever try to separate the two. They both need to be there. So thank you. That was almost, to me, divine, the way that came together. Well, all right, Mark chapter 6, beginning in verse 14. We're going to see about John, the greatest prophet, by Jesus' own pronouncement, the greatest prophet ever was. And we're going to look at what it means to be a disciple and what the cost is of being a disciple as we see this story couched between the disciples going out and preaching this message of salvation. And now all of a sudden we have John here and the story about his head being severed by this evil woman, Herodias. Oh yeah, she didn't actually swing the axe, but she's the one who made it happen. And the whole point of this is that there's a cost to being a disciple. That this discipleship business is so contrary to the world that you can lose your head over it. All right? And there's a lot of examples of how that can can play out in our own world today without necessarily physically losing your head, but there is some cost to being a disciple of Jesus Christ. So go to your text, Mark chapter 6, begin verse 14, and we'll share the story. King Herod heard about this. And what did he hear about? Just go back through the text, and we've got Jesus working all these miracles and doing all these amazing things. And he heard about this. For Jesus' name had become well known. Some were saying, John the Baptist has been raised from the dead, and that is why miraculous power is at work in him. Others said, he's Elijah. And still others claim, he's a prophet, like one of the prophets of long ago. But when Herod heard this, he said, John. And you can almost hear the dread in his voice as he's saying this. John, maybe a little shaky too. The man I had beheaded has been raised from the dead. And now we get an explanation of what happened. For Herod himself had given orders to have John arrested. And he had him bound and he had him put in prison. He did this because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, whom he married. For John had been saying to Herod, it's not lawful, it's not right for you to have your brother's wife. So Herodias nursed a grudge against John and wanted to kill him. But she wasn't able to because Herod feared John and he protected him, knowing him to be a righteous and holy man. When Herod heard John, he was greatly puzzled, yet he liked to listen to him. John had a convicting message to Herod. John was the one who had the authority to speak into this ruler of Israel's life. Here is a man who is supposed to be a godly ruler over the nation of Israel. And he was evil. He was wicked. He was immoral. And John had to speak to him about his marriage with Herodias. Leviticus 18 and verse 16, it's very clearly stated in the law that you shall not have your brother's wife while the brother is still alive. And so here we've got, and by the way, if you want to really have an interesting study, get out all the material and study about the different Herods in Israel. Now it's crazy because Herod is really just like a family name, much like Pharaoh, and there were various types of pharaohs, right? In Egypt, you understand that, right? Somebody say, I guess. Even if you don't, please say you do. All right, and so it was the same thing with these Herods, and there were all these different Herods. It was a family name, and maybe you remember Herod the Great. Herod the Great was the Herod who had all the babies killed when Jesus was born. Remember that? Somebody nod a head up and down if you remember that. It's in the early part of Matthew, Luke. All right, and so this is not that Herod. This is the other Herod who killed John the Baptist, who married his brother's wife. And by the way, it gets really complicated when you look at all these Herods, because Herodias actually married her uncle. Oh, this is getting really deep. I know, you won't remember any of this. Just remember this, that there are a lot of different Herods, and they have a strange family tree. Okay? And this Herod is different from the Herod in the time of Jesus. Well, Herod has this wife now by the name of Herodias, who is his brother's wife. And they went on a family visit. They took a shine to one another. And she comes home as his wife. All right? So Herodias has this wicked plan. All right? She's got this wicked plan because she's hearing this message from John, who's being this constant torment to her. You are wrong, you are wrong, you are wrong. She's feeling guilty, and she figures, I got an answer. I have a solution for this. I will kill John the Baptist. That's what's going to happen, but she's got a problem. And the problem is this, that Herod kind of liked John. It was kind of a weird situation that preachers often find themselves in. People will come to sermons and they'll listen over and over and over again. And they kind of want to be verbally spanked. But then they'll walk out and they make no change to their life. It is really strange, but it's very common. So Herod had this really interesting relationship with John, and he knew he was a good man, and so he's going to protect him. But the wife, the Herodias, she was wicked. She was premeditated, and she had a plan.